looking like this, but the popular opinion is that after endless droughts and famine, the lack of easily available rice and water, which are the two elements needed to form a Chinaman, led to an uncontrolled period of rapid population decline. Seeing that China was at its weakest, the Australians invaded, and the rest is history. Kenshi plays like some strange hybrid of Mountain Blade, Jagged Alliance, and Def Jam Fight for New York. After about 10 autistic years of development, it's finally here, featuring drug trafficking, human trafficking, and giant enemy crabs. Kenshi, it's got it all. To begin, you need to choose from one of 13 different starting scenarios. You can start as anything from a nameless vagabond, a trader with connections and money to spare, or even a guy who's hit rock bottom. No money, no food, and no masturbation. The character you start with can be fully customized. You can start as a human, a Shekman, a Bugman, or a Skellyman, which all have their own respective perks and penalties. Humans are of course good at everything, but you know what they're not good at? Surviving acid rain, or swimming in acid, or getting too close to one of these. Bugmen are exceptional at losing limbs and slavery. Are they good at capturing slaves? No, they're good at being slaves. Sheks are good at fighting. They're not good at reasoning, critical thinking, and having any sort of long-term planning. Skellymen are better at everything, which is why everyone's afraid of them. They're also probably responsible for destroying the world. Being perfect comes at a price. You can't heal. You need repairs instead, and good luck finding a mechanic in a desert. However, the character you start with isn't special. They've got stats and skills like everyone else. They can also permanently die like everyone else. A game of Kenshi only truly ends when all of your characters are 6 feet under. There's no real objective in Kenshi. That objective can be whatever you want it to be. Just like getting bullied in high school, the core philosophy of Kenshi is get your shit kicked in and get stronger, survive, and fight another day. Once you get into your first fight, you'll understand what I mean. Kenshi uses a limb-based physics system to determine whether attacks actually connect, and you don't die outright. Usually, your limbs suffer too much damage, forcing you to crawl on the ground or fight with a broken arm, as your broken appendages flail around helplessly. If you spill out too much blood or intestines, you'll collapse unconscious instead. You can still wake up from a trauma and bandage yourself together, or rely on the help of allies to pop your bones back in place and carry you to relative safety. However, take too much damage in a short span of time, and you might permanently lose an arm or a leg. If that happens, you can install prosthetic limbs, but having a bucket instead of a foot isn't exactly ideal, so hold on to those. But if your organs take too much damage, don't worry about prosthetics, because you're already fucking dead. All that's left is to strip you down and chuck you in the furnace, because cremation is a far safer solution than letting your corpse fume up and attract the bone dogs. Remember I said combat uses physics, because understanding that is extremely important. Characters make different swings and motions with different weapons, which also change as you get more experienced. If a swing physically connects with an enemy, it counts as a hit. Not only that, if there were, let's say, 3 enemies standing closely packed together, they'll all get cut by the same swing. Basically, I'm telling you that if you want to die very quickly, gang up on an enemy, because that's a great idea. He'll take a single broad horizontal swing and decapitate your entire team. It's better to have characters duel each enemy or try and overwhelm them with a variety of attacks. You can even do some crazy micro and make your characters manually evade attacks while everyone else flanks them from the side. Combat is really fucking good. It's responsive and only gets more entertaining as you get the hang of it. In the beginning, you're nothing but a walking sack of rice weed. By the end, you're still a walking sack of rice weed, but hey, you can stage dive leviathans like a baller. But combat's only one of many things you do in Kenshi. It's a means to an end, and achieving any of your goals requires money. Money buys you food, equipment, protection, and companions. You can't get anywhere without it, but you can't get it anywhere for free. To make money, we need to explore, see beautiful and bizarre places with our own sets of risks and challenges, such as dust storms, gas clouds, flesh-eating cannibals, flesh-eating spiders, lack of water, too much water, and this. I don't recommend stepping into one of these, but they can outrun any character, so the only real way of dodging them is by getting out of the way very quickly, or by traveling at night. Luckily, they're not as dangerous once they fall out of the sky. Besides all the different places that can get you killed, there's a lot of interesting people to meet throughout the world. Hey, I think I've had enough of Kenshi for today. Actually, turns out they're completely friendly. They just need some help peeling potatoes. Unfortunately, it turned out I was the potato, and my limbs had to be peeled off. I can conclusively say this is probably the most effective weight loss plan I've ever seen in my life. There's a lot of factions out there, and most of them aren't skin bandits, and once you meet them, you'll realize they're even worse. You can interact with them, help them, and even pledge allegiance to their cause, or you can kidnap them and execute their leaders, forcing them to crumble and/or the lack of leadership. Even better, the resulting power vacuum leads to rival factions taking over and potentially expanding across the world. Kenshi lets you do that. It even encourages you to do that. Sooner or later, your nomadic lifestyle of running from city to city will get old. Why pay for methanol poisoning when we can make our own? Why suffer the daily struggle when we can grow our own weed and process it into soft, sticky mounds of hash, which we'll smuggle into the United Cities using Amazon Prime? Here's Hobbs demonstrating our one-day Prime delivery option. He's currently sneaking past the border at a comfortable land speed of 26 miles per hour. The guards don't even see him. If they do, they'll pretend they didn't, intimidated by the man Naruto running through their gates with over 50 kilos of solid hash on his back. As you've probably figured out, you can make your own outpost. At the start, it won't be anything special and you'll be barely scraping by to survive, but once you get some research and technology going, you'll be on your way to establishing a thriving city, provided you don't get murdered, robbed, or eaten while doing so. Setting up an outpost changes the game completely. You now have a place to live, but everyone wants to take what they can't have, and they will unless your defenses hold up. Each region has its own set of wildlife and factions that will try and ruin your day. In my case, I set up in the desert. The soil sucked, the crops didn't grow, but at least I was only under attack every day by 4 different factions. Starving bandits kept coming to beg for food. They got a free bolt in the mouth instead. The dust bandits just wanted to kill us. At least they were honest about it. The Sheks kept asking for a good clean fight, so I walled myself off and turned them into pincushions. The Black Dragon Ninjas can go fuck themselves. We're suffering our second famine this season, and it's all because a pack of weeaboos with tin hats keep dabbing away with our bread baskets. And you know what? The raids aren't even the worst part. It was Sundays, Kenshi, where every Sunday is prayer day, and you don't want to skip out on prayer day. Oh, you missed your Bible. Don't worry, this one's on me. Oh, you can't make prayer day because you're in a coma from severe head trauma? I literally do not give a shit. I don't care if there's enemies bashing at your gates. You raise those shits right now, and I'm giving you to the count of 5 to come pray to our Lord and Savior, Okran. If you don't come out right now, I'm gonna burn this place to the ground and kill every blasphemous pagan who takes the name of the Lord in vain. And we're gonna do this every Sunday. Prayer day is the best goddamn day. Unlike those lazy preachers in real life, the Holy Nation priests will personally travel all the way to your base together with their faithful team of heavily armed paladins, and I don't recommend making them upset. If you can survive all of that, having an outpost lets you really expand on your options. You can even assign people to tasks and functions using an automated job system, and essentially sit back while they generate money and get stuck on terrain. After securing a stable source of food, you naturally want more people to eat it. If that doesn't work, buy yourself a couple of animals. They'll eat through your survival rations in no time. Animals are a mixed blessing, so I've arranged them in order of usefulness. Goats, which are walking sacks of meat. Bone dogs, which are the body cleanup crews of Kenshi. Very cute. I recommend getting a pack of them just to watch them play fetch with each other. There's also garus and bulls, which are walking sacks of storage space and absolutely essential for trading and carrying all of your stolen ceramic bowls. And finally, there's crabs, which are objectively the greatest animals for both land-based and naval combat. Oh, real funny, Seth. Now, show me a squad of them. I admit, I got really uncreative with naming them after the first dozen or so. You're not even limited to a single outpost. You can build an outpost wherever you want. Just be prepared for the consequences once other people start to take notice. From there, the world is your oyster, and it's waiting to be devoured by your legions of domesticated crustaceans. Your characters don't even have to be in the same region as each other. The game keeps track of everything in real time, no matter where they are on the map. You can set send squads and expeditions out into the wild, while your peasants work their lives away in your sweatshops. And you sort of have to as well. You can't unlock any of the later research trees without plundering the remains of ancient civilization, so you can finally harness the ancient secrets of eggplant hydroponics. Kenshi is a wonderful, bizarre, and at times absolutely brutal game with a completely unique setting. It's an absolute joy to play, and I've greatly enjoyed watching my life spiral out of control as I feed my newfound addiction. I of course give it the biggest score, and my highest recommendation. I give it 250 stacks of wheat straw over the insane fucking attack range of blood spiders. Seriously, look at that shit. Luckily, you don't have to deal with it. Kenshi is extremely mod friendly, and most of the issues you have in the game can be easily fixed through modding. I've attached my mod list in the description below, and it should contain the bare essentials to improve gameplay without significantly changing anything. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a lot of potatoes to peel, but don't worry, I've got a lot of free time. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. Also, earlier this month I made a shitty website introducing SethSceneTach.com. It's hot garbage, but it's also got links to all my videos, especially the banned ones. Come check it out. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful. Have a good one. Guild generously deals to a lot of fatally. Come check it out, especially the banned ones. Hey people, epilepsy warning. I'm serious. You have about 3 seconds. Now that all the epileptics are either
Hello, how are you all doing? Welcome. Let's do this. So this guy says, "Hey, Les, I've been a fan and lurker for your content since Salon's Warwick, Man vs. Machine, and the Street Fighter Assassin's Fist videos way back when. My question to you is, do you have any countermeasures for the inevitable and unreasonable toxicity that will come your way because of your position within C9 and your polarizing reputation within the LoL community? In the past, you've gone on stream and said that most of your social support network comes in the form of your former BBQ players like Onion Autumn, Nemesis, formerly Sanchovies, and the infamous duo of Gengar, Nold, and Joseph Patrick Marsh. Realize that it's still possible to reach out and keep in touch with them, but the time difference between NA and Korea and the workload being a head coach may make that more difficult. Are you solely planning on leaning on people like Max and Fudge for in-person support, and have you taken additional measures to support your mental health? So, let's go step by step. Do I have any countermeasures for the inevitable and unreasonable toxicity that will come my way because of my position within C9 and the polarizing reputation within the LoL community? So, the thing here is that as a content creator, and as someone that was co-streaming all of the regions, and as someone that was actively, either adding people or, directly targeting certain plays inside of a game, discussing it, tweeting about it, making videos, uploading them to YouTube, etc., I feel like I'm very doubtful that the flame or criticism could ever be greater than what it already has been. I don't think that's entirely possible, especially because I think it's unreasonable to say that I would actually see all of it. And what I mean by that is that it's really hard to see all of it if there's so many different threads or if there's so many different areas, right? You're only going to see a portion of it. And that's why I think that there's a limit to the amount that I can even see. But yeah, I don't think there's anything necessarily in place because I've just been doing this for years as a content creator, and I think that the way that I built my brand, as well as just the amount of interactions that I had publicly with the community and other people on public, in public platforms, I think it's not. I don't think it's likely to be that different. The next part is you've gone on stream and said that most of your social support network comes in the form of, and then you go on to list people close to me, and you cite a time difference. So what I can say is time difference doesn't really matter in esports, right? People are only sleeping anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a night. And most people in esports are extremely interconnected. At the time of doing this AMA, Joe's actually in the chat right now. Joe was in the chat as soon as I turned on the stream. I've made jokes in the past that, to me, Joe is one of the most hardest working people in esports because Joe was the only person who I ever met that seemingly was always awake when I was. And obviously that was a reference to when I was doing all the co-streams and all the different time zones, and it felt like I could always message Joe any hour of the night, regardless of if he was in Korea, if he was in PST, or if he was in EST. It didn't seem to matter what his time zone was. And I think the same goes with everyone else that's really listed. I think in esports, especially me, as someone, I operated primarily on Western time zones. So listing people who generally operate in Western time zones seems a little bit weird that there would be some sort of connection issues, right? Max and Fudge are obviously at Cloud9. Sanchovies is, I believe, Eastern time zone or something. I do still talk to Sanchovies. I do still talk to Joe. I talk to Joe a lot in order to make the decision to go to Cloud9. I think Joe is one of the people I talk to the most when coming to that decision, right? Arnold is not someone that I've had difficulty talking with. So I don't think time zones or anything like this makes it really different. And the workload of being a coach may make that more difficult. I don't think this is actually the case. And then the final part is, are you solely planning on leaning on people like Mass and Fudge for in-person support, or have you taken additional measures to support your mental health? So I think some of the stuff that I did is, obviously a lot of people know that I took a 6-week break from the end of August right until Worlds started, pretty much. And even in August, I think August was my least streamed month ever in the last 4 or 5 years, outside of September, where I literally streamed, I think I streamed 4 hours or something in September, and those were IRL streams walking to Subway. So I think that the break that I took was because I was extremely burned out with everything that I've been doing, because I've been live streaming. I've been co-streaming and live viewing for the last 2.5 years, in addition to doing solo queue, in addition to doing stream scrims, and in addition to, you know, miscellaneous content that I would end up producing. And so I don't think that there's necessarily any intent to lean on people. I think the environment that Cloud9 will have is ultimately going to be easier to operate inside of, because I'm only operating on one time zone. Obviously, that time zone leaks into some other time zones. Like, it'll still be possible to watch LCK, you know, when LCK is live, because PST tends to go into LCK. You guys might have noticed that Fudge was very often on all of my LCK co-streams because of how PST overlaps with KST. It's a pretty easy thing for PST to be able to, like, watch LCK or something. So I think in this regard, I don't think anything's really changing. Other stuff that, I mean, I started doing is, like, in September. I mean, I wasn't as active on social media. I've been a lot more active lately, but I do still think that it is toned down because I don't have as much to worry on or focus about. I think joining Cloud9 is actually less stressful than everything that I was doing. So this actually goes against, well, it doesn't go against exactly, but it adds on to something that I answered up here. The reason that I think Cloud9 is less stressful is because, again, I am in one time zone. Being in one time zone is something I haven't done in 2.5, 3 years. I have not lived in one time zone for 2.5 and 3 years. No longer do my sleep schedules have to be broken up into blocks or something in order to, you know, co-stream LCS, do LEC, do LCK, fret over if I'm going to get a video out, and do all this other stuff. I don't have to worry about stuff like that. I don't have to worry about my engagement being the same way, because I think that just being a part of Cloud9 carries it carries something that unfortunately I've always detested, which is just the title. Title itself has a really weird power in esports that I think that it shouldn't have. Because what I mean by that is that a lot of anti-me people are probably really upset now that they can't use the appeal to authority that you know, is there something that LCS coaches or LEC coaches or LCK coaches just don't get that I get, right? Because I'm just not a coach. But now they can't use the title argument. But I think the title argument was always really dumb. But what I will say is that the title thing does act as a defensive measure against idiots who don't realize that the title argument was never an argument ever. So it acts as a preemptive blockade versus very unintelligent people that don't realize that there's nothing that actually qualifies people for these positions, right? And what I mean by that is that, yes, I'm head coach of Cloud9. Does that mean that my game knowledge has somehow changed just because I now have a title? The answer is no. Nothing actually changes, right? Because there's nothing that qualifies people necessarily for these positions. There's nothing to gate people from getting these job titles. But what it does do is that there's a lot of people that don't realize that, or they don't believe that that's actually the case. They think that there is a certain level of game knowledge that you have to have, or people in these positions, you know, do have to be capable of X, Y, and Z, and it's really not the case. But I can actually lean on the reality that it does block. It acts as like a Twitter block. It's like a soft block against a certain demographic of people that would otherwise be toxic against me. So I mean, there's the time zone thing that Cloud9 has going for me, where I'm in one time zone that adds a lot less stress. It decreases so much. There's the title defense that I have, where there is a certain demographic. I mean, I can't give a percentage or something. There's just a certain demographic of people that, you know, are going to have to remain silent because they can no longer use, appeal to authority argument or title something. So that's like an unfortunate reality. But I mean, it helps me. It just sucks that like it is the reality that it is. I think there's so many things. I don't have to worry about bills anymore. I don't have to worry about, invoices on, certain things. I don't have to worry about, just basic errands. This is also this is gone. Cloud9 prepares meals. I believe 2 or 3 times a day. So I don't have to worry about, okay, when am I eating or what am I gonna get to eat or something, because I can plan everything in advance. There's a lot of things that are just done preemptively that you know, there's a lot of things that are just done preemptively that decrease a lot of stress. So I think this makes sense. Okay, so Berserker's a relatively obscure figure. What would I say is the most exceptional trait as a player? Mechanics. I think when it comes to Korean or you know, Chinese players, it's always just going to be mechanics, because very rarely will they do anything to stand out otherwise. And I think the same goes for the one tricks that even get really high on the ladder. If you actually watch their laning or you watch other things that they do, even like itemization, you'll notice that there's a lot of blunders, there's a lot of errors, right? So for Berserker, the most important thing for me was Berserker's mechanics when watching the gameplay. So Berserker was under Teddy and Gumayushi. So there's no possibility to promote when you're under Teddy and Gumayushi. Teddy and Gumayushi are 2 players that I said I thought were, you know, top 3 in the world at AD carry. You know, 2 of the 3, and T1 had both. So I think it's really impossible for Berserker to promote, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't play in LCK or that he didn't have the ability to play in LCK. So I think mechanics are all that I really care about, and everything else is easy to go about. Hey Les, which team do you expect to be the biggest competition LCS in internationally, and why? So I think the biggest competition in LCS, I think that right out the gate, I think it's 100 Thieves, just because they didn't change anything. They didn't change anything, and I think Team Liquid has like a stacked roster, but I don't know what that immediately translates to right away. So I think that like right out the gate, it's only 100 Thieves. But I don't know. Internationally, I mean, it's hard, right? It's the LPL and LCK teams. So I think this offseason, Afrika got a lot better. I think T1 is relatively the same, but they have the ability to maybe be better, depending on Zeus. And because they're keeping the main roster that, you know, got out of a really poor summer split, and they turned it around after removing the coaching staff, and they went on that miracle win streak, and they just turned everything around, and they seemingly kept getting better. And yeah, so I think if T1's roster all stays together, T1 is definitely a contender for LCK in both spring and summer. Which also means that, you know, Collision at MSI is possible. I think Dom1, interestingly, I think Dom1 got worse. So I think Afrika got better. I think T1 potentially is better. Dom1, I think, got worse. And I think Gen G got a lot better. I think Gen G is a lot better. For LPL, I don't even know all the rosters that are finalized on LPL yet. So I have no idea what is even going on with LPL, but Generation Generation Chovy is definitely a much stronger team this year. So I think LCK is mostly, again, it's Dom1, T1, and Gen G, or Generation Chovy. And then I think Afrika also has the possibility to do good things. So I think all of that is something that is going on. So yeah, I honestly this year though Europe does not look. Europe definitely looks weaker again, but there's a lot of big question marks. Who knows? Maybe G2's team is actually. I don't know much about their bot lane at all. Yeah, I just don't know much about their bot lane. I think Europe does look weaker, which is sad. I think the top of LCS is more competitive than the top of LEC. But I do think in a 10 versus 10, so if you take the 10 teams for LCS, you take the 10 teams from LEC, LEC would win. Unless you had it be like an Iron Man style or something like that. I do think that would happen. But anyways, hey Les, congrats on the coaching gig. Every year there's quite a lot of teams players that seem to experience some form of burnout, especially midway summer split. Mad Lions this past year. Is there something you personally feel may affect Cloud9? Oh, okay, this one's okay. Okay, so Is it something that I think might personally affect Cloud9? The only person I'm worried about, because I don't really know them on a personal level, is Blabber. I don't know how Blabber will be with Burnout, but we have 3 Koreans potentially on the main roster, or 2, because support's not totally decided. But we have 3 Koreans on the main roster. Koreans will grind 18 hours a day, no burnout, just whatever, right? Welcome to Korea 9. I am known as a grinder when I commit to something. So while I experienced burnout from co-streaming and other stuff, I think a lot of that was also attributed to emotional turbulence, from feeling like I didn't know what to do in order to move in different directions while doing all of that, as well as operating in all the different time zones. But I think that when I can just sit there in one time zone and grind and slave away at stuff, I'm totally fine. I know that Fudge also tends to, I think, get agitated if other people aren't taking stuff as serious. So I think Fudge is also a grinder. So I just don't know about Blabber. Blabber's the only question mark. He could be I have no idea. So I genuinely don't know. But I don't anticipate burnout. Now for the Academy team, scrimming against the main team, that is a question. I'm not worried about Malice. I'm not worried about Sven. From talking to them both, I also know that Malice is a grind lord. Anyone who's followed his Twitter knows about like his PoE runs, how little he'll sleep, and like all this other stuff. So I think in that regard, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about some of the Academy players. Some of the other Academy players, I don't know. I don't know how they are with grinding. It doesn't matter though, because we have Korean. We have other Koreans on staff which haven't been announced yet. So we have other players from Korea that are challenger level that will be on staff, and they'll be participating in internal scrims and internal solo queue and other stuff. And then obviously I'm attempting to grind a lot again, because a lot of people know that I played in the Academy scrims that we streamed earlier on in the year. So I'll also play in the internal stuff. So I think we have 17 people. I think it's 17 internally. I think we have 17 people internally. So even if some of the players aren't grind lords, I think that we have too many that are. So I think it's I think it's totally fine. So one of the things I think people don't realize about top teams is that the best talent players want to go to those teams. So for instance, it's not a coincidence that top teams historically always seemingly had really good players or really good talent. And the reason is because when you are a new player, when you're 17, 18, 19 years old, right, and you haven't joined a team yet, you want to hold out for the top teams, and you only want to take offers from those top teams. That's all that you want to do. So what ends up happening is that the players who are actually good, the creme de la creme talent pool players, right, they already know who the top teams are, and they want to go to those top teams. And the issue is that it doesn't matter. Like, for instance, if CLG offers Berserker the same exact thing that Cloud9 offers Berserker, Berserker's probably not going, right? Some of the other Koreans that were talked to this past off season, they would only entertain, or apparently according to their agents, they would only talk to select LCS teams, Cloud9, Team Liquid, etc. Right. So Joseph Patrick Marsh, based in chat right now, they do all go to T1 because T1 is the pinnacle of Korean esports. So if you are a top Korean ladder player, if you're top 50 on the ladder, you're top 100 or something, and you're actually really good, you're just gonna look. Hanwha Life contacts you for their amateur team or something. No thanks. Live Sandbox contacts you or something. No thanks. If Nongshim contacts you for their amateur team, you're gonna say no thanks. If you're really, really, really high on the ladder and you know that you're really good, and what'll end up happening is you get into, I can say that. You wait, you hold out for the T1 or the Dom1 or the Gen G, person to message you, and that's what happens. And basically, once upon a time, Cloud9 and TSM and, you know, Team Liquid and all these other teams, they attracted these players because the absolute elite players only want to go to the elite teams. How many times has anyone seen a truly elite player go to a random team? It almost never happens. It almost never happens. What you never, ever almost see a truly elite player go from a top team to a random team. Some people in chat are citing Chovy right now, and I think Chovy's a different conversation and like why I think that happens. A lot of people saying Reckless right now. Reckless also didn't have another option. Reckless was sort of he was forked in a way. So some people are listing some players that I don't even think the rosters they ended up on are necessarily bad. Yes, I would agree. So a lot of people are citing Crown. Crown, when he went to NA, was already on the decline, number one, and Crown was a player that was struggling in D2 Korea, D3 Korea. When he would come back, and then he would use Riot accounts, and he would climb up 100, 200 LP or something like that on Riot accounts. But I don't think these are very good examples. So very rarely does this happen. Now, what I will also point to is that when these esports orgs lose their allure, you notice really quickly that top talent stop joining. So, for instance, look at maybe, I don't know, I look at TSM right now. TSM has really lost the allure. It has. CLG lost the allure. No one wants to go there anymore. No one wants to go there. So it doesn't matter if you were a top talent, you're not holding out for these orgs anymore. So what I do want to say is that I don't think that it is an example of excellent infrastructure or scouting capabilities, right? Because I think that you could also cite a lot of poor examples that maybe come from those orgs, right? What I do think is that generally the name almost guarantees that the mass majority of people who enter the org actually are good. So I think that's what's happening. I don't think that it necessarily directly correlates with scouting capability, because what a lot of people can see from publicly available content is that most people who comment or do scouting lack the ability to actually do so. And I don't think that that's actually talked about enough. That's been one of my main critiques. I talked about that in some of the League Nightmare episodes, in that there's a problem that esports has in general, which is that there's a large there's nothing to gatekeep certain titles and positions, and there's sort of an ineptocracy that is going on, and I think it's problematic. But basically, yes, TLDR, if you are a truly top team, top talent will intentionally hold off waiting to join you. That's just actually how it goes. How confident are you to outdraft other teams in the league? I feel like long-term Cloud9 fan, one of our biggest issues, one of the games in our drafts felt lifeless. So anyways, do I expect to outdraft other teams in the league? Yes. Do I expect that most people consider what an outdraft is to be an outdraft? No, I already acknowledged that is not that's not a thing, because different people have different stances on what is realistic or practical when it comes to capability or execution. The biggest example of this that I can think of, right? Dom had a really good video that he cut up and he put on his YouTube channel, which is me, Fudge, Nemesis, and I think Max, advocating for one draft and Dom advocating for the other draft. And then owner weighed in at the very end in the post-game interview. So I think there's things like that that'll happen, where some people will say that Cloud9 lost the draft because it's not practical to assume that the players are capable of executing or doing certain things. I think this is a reality. I think blundering draft is something that can happen, for sure. And I also think that through my own metrics, there might be situations where I determine that the draft is lost through my own personal criteria, but that the draft is won relative to who the enemy team is. And I think that's a different question in itself that I think I more accurately answered in the main Reddit thread, if that makes sense. Someone's saying that you won't have 10 minutes to think and champ select, only 30. So we're having an app made right now where I can dial back the clock on myself because I want to get to a point that I was at in BBQ, which is I can just say the picks really, really fast. What would be the most difficult thing to so I think the most difficult thing to get across is all of the Korean players have probably never. So Korean in Korea, you're not really taught academically. You're not taught to ask questions. You're not taught to ask why. You're not taught to challenge status quo ideas. And I think that, obviously, the way that I think about the game and the way that I talk about the game and the way that I look at the game is going to be very alien to them, so I think that's probably the biggest hurdle. I don't think it's impossible because I've gotten along with a lot of Korean players. Obviously, like, the BBQ players continue to live with me for a very long time. I've had other Korean players, like, reach out to me in private, and I think that, like, I'm going to say this as, like, I don't know, it's weird to say it's, like, an achievement, right? But I'll say this, because Joe actually commented on it in the BMW esports Discord. Me and Faker agreed on how LoL should be played. Or we liked the idea of how LoL should be gone about. Joe publicly revealed this. Because everyone knows from my T1 announcement video that Faker signed off on me joining T1. Faker actually was the last step. I had to basically there was a chain of command that I had to get approval from, and Faker was the last one that would sign off. So I had to have a multi-hour conversation with Faker, and then there was also other follow-up conversations that I had with him. So yeah, Joe revealed that in the BMW esports stuff. The BMW esports AMA Discord thingy. So yeah, we liked the vision or the idea of how, you know, things could have been gone about. So yeah. So I mean, if I've never had experience. I've never had much. I've never had bad experiences with Korean players. I just think that that's probably the most difficult thing, is that none of the Korean players are probably used to the way of approaching the game that we're going to obviously bring up. So, that's pretty much it. And that's it. So, hey everyone, it's LS, and it has been a very long time since I have done a champion reveal. I didn't end up doing Vex, and so it's felt like it has been an eternity since I got to do one. So, Zeri, the Spark of Zon. Currently, we're looking at it on a bit of a scuffed version because apparently the main Riot website that is showing her is down, so that's why the graphic here is a little bit blurry, but we have a nice clean graphic of her right here. She obviously has that green hair thing that just came out in the most recent skin line, the Debonair stuff, but not really sure what's going on, and obviously she has this thingy-majiggy on her arm, and obviously she has something going on with electricity. But we're going to just go into apparently what she is. A headstrong, spirited young woman from Zon's working class. Zeri channels her electric magic, okay, to charge herself another custom-crafted gun. Her volatile power mirrors her emotions, its spark reflecting her lightning-fast approach to life. Deeply compassionate toward others, Zeri carries the love of her family and her home into every fight. Though through her eagerness to help can sometimes backfire, Zeri believes one truth to be certain: stand up for your community and we'll stand up for you. So this is like a mirror to Jinx or something, where she's actually coming from Zon and she has magic or something, and she seems to like gadgets, and she has electricity, and she's a marksman. So I wonder if there's anything about that. Related champions, Echo, interesting. Okay, I belong here, we all belong here. Anyone who's watched Arcane obviously knows that Echo had that like little resort place inside of Zon, and they were very adamant about Zon being independent and Zon basically being its own community and everything. So I wonder if this is like the good side of Jinx or something, or something of that nature, obviously. Raised in a large working-class family, Zeri grew up surrounded by warmth, care, and many strong opinions. There were no strangers to hardship, having lost loved ones to Zahn's dangers. Even so, their community was their strength from birth. Zeri had a unique relationship with electricity. Each giggle caught a spark, each cry a shock. Magic wasn't rare in Zahn, but Zahn's electric charm was. It charged her with emotions, sometimes grounded, sometimes building up to fierce and fiery. By her teenage years, her neighbors knew she was more likely the cause of power outages than a broken circuit. Life in Zahn was beautiful chaos, her grandma would say, and Zeri embodied that all too well. Not everyone found her quirks endearing. Family and friends, Zeri was a lovable mess. To others, she was simply a mess. Sounds very, very similar, obviously, to Jinx. During occasional outbursts where her stray current shattered a street lamp or 12, Zeri thought she'd see flashes or something, but there was no time to dwell. She wished she had better control of her volatile powers. This is really sounding like this is mirroring Jinx in some way, but I'm not, too sure. We're going to skip around a little bit inside of her bio. Walking the Demonstrates, Zeri saw broken faces, family scrabbled to rebuild, and Zeri lent her hand, doing all she could without her powers, but the more she helped, the more she witnessed. Workers struggled to jumpstart generators, parents toiled to make meals with broken stovetops. These people didn't have anyone standing up for them. They haven't really been cycling all that much.
Hey people, it's Paul Anthony Romero here.
Hey people, Seth here. Shout out to my man, Paul Anthony Romero, the actual composer for the entire Might and Magic series. He made like 9 takes of this intro. Bless your autism. Today, we're doing 2 things for the first time. One, I'm re-reviewing Might and Magic 6, The Mandate of Heaven. Why? Because my original wasn't very good, so I took it down. Completely unrelated, but it also featured hardcore pornography in the first few milliseconds. 2, I'm not actually reviewing Might and Magic 6. I'm reviewing Might and Magic 6 inside Might and Magic 8. Listen, it's complicated. Some time ago, a madman decided to merge Might and Magic 6, 7, and 8 inside the Might and Magic 8 engine and mod the shit out of it. How does it work? No idea. My coding experience is limited.
Would you like to buy something? See ya, cheapskate.
But it's very fun. All you need is a copy of Might and Magic 8 Day of a Destroyer from GOG and to follow the instructions linked below. Right, let's get to the meat of it. Seth, why you playing a bunch of first-person RPGs more than 2 decades old?
I don't know.
Because nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and my emotional cortex is holding me hostage, falsely associating the first time I ever played these games with the positive connotations of being a child. That's why I'm here right now, walking through a gray-brown corridor, searching for a tiny button on the wall the color of puke that will help me access the next part of this endless, featureless abyss. That's also why there's grown-ass men out there wearing Zelda t-shirts in public, because they played before life got complicated, and they relate it to a simpler time. Before mom and dad got divorced, before dad caught yellow fever, and came back with a new mommy from the Philippines. The mod, titled World of Enroth, lets you start in any one of the free games, allows you to travel across worlds, and complete all the storylines.
I suppose you'll be wanting Salderface. Don't mind the rats.
The lore explanation for this is that the other 2 groups of heroes have been accidentally written out of time. This might sound ridiculous. On the other hand, I'm in a universe where I'm spending all my time getting the approval of the medieval United Nations so I can visit their oracle downstairs, which is actually an ancient supercomputer you have to restore by finding all 4 of its RAM sticks, so it can give you the prophecy that you will visit the oracle and return upstairs with an ancient weapon that will help expel the devils from Enroth. A fucking gun, which comes in 2 flavors, gun and gun with capitalization. Now, before I go on to explain that angels in Heroes of Might and Magic 3 are actually synthetic androids, or that devils are actually a race of aggressively expansionist aliens, and that the reason we're inside a medieval fantasy setting is because we nuked ourselves and took out the entire interplanetary Stargate network to slow their advance, I'll make the quick point that the actual lore of this game is insane enough already. Let's talk about gameplay. First and foremost, check this out. We got mouse look. I don't have to press page up, page down each time I want to rotate my neck. Because we're in the latest engine, you can have 5 party members, which can be swapped out and replaced at any time. For my current party, we started in Might and Magic 6. Why? Because they got the best portraits, and one of them looks like Johnny Depp. Just look at his bright smile as he murders an entire crowd of women. You can complete the games with any combination of party members. But who am I kidding? No, you can't. There's shit out there that turns you to stone, gives you autism, causes schizophrenia, induces narcolepsy, goblinization, smallpox, death, and eradication. Do you know the difference between death and eradication? With death, you still got a body to revive. With eradication, there is not a single atom left of your body. Good luck medicating a lack of existence. Thus, I strongly recommend you get a cleric and a sorcerer. Others claim you can survive with just a druid, but here's a hypothetical. Somebody dies, the druid can revive him. The druid dies, the druid can't revive him because he is dead. Immediately upon starting the game, you're going to click the left wall of the bank, take a scroll of fly, pop it, and fly to the top of a smuggler's guild. Do try to be quick, or you're going to find out what that little tower up there does. Click the wall and teleport yourself to a fucking endgame area where you're going to quickly evade all the dragons, get inside the shrine, and get a permanent +20 to all of your attributes. Then hug the inner wall and keep smashing left click until you teleport again. Imagine being so based that you program in a 1-to-1 replica of your development office. Include all the staff and include your boss as a fucking goblin you kill inside his office. Because that's exactly what the staff of New World Computing did. Walk inside the office, go to the payroll desk, pay yourself a salary. You deserve it. Go to the canteen, load up on food, eat some curry, get food poisoning. Don't worry, we'll get revenge on the ones responsible very soon. Walk inside John Van Cannigam's office, become afraid, but you can't be fired. You quit. Smack him dead, walk to the promotion desk and give your entire party a mega buff which will last for as long as you're able to stay awake. That's fine because we don't need sleep. Teleport out of the office, run. Hug the outer left wall of a shrine and keep smashing left click. Teleport back to the starting town. Now you're going to go on a rampage and kill everything on the map. Don't stop until you're done. If sleep deprivation kicks in, rub caffeine powder directly into your eyes. Once it's all over, congratulations. You've essentially skipped the entire start of Might and Magic 6. The world is your oyster.
Rotten hell, you penny-pinching miser.
As you can tell, I play this shit way too much. However, the mod can still surprise me. You might get a side quest in the beginning to return a certain candelabra to a certain cult. Don't do it. My reputation tumbled to the negative hundreds, all because I returned a single menorah to the cult of Ba. It does make sense, since the cult is trying to directly usurp the king. How do they plan to do that? By offering cheap and affordable healthcare. I know, it makes me sick to my stomach. They even laugh maniacally each time I walk out, knowing full well I won't have to sell my house or my children to pay for treatment. As a result, every guard in every city tries to reduce the number of limbs I possess. This might not sound too bad, except reputation directly controls the price of everything. Positive rep lets you buy and sell at 100% of a real value. Negative rep reduces the sell price of anything to a single gold coin. However, the cost of buying anything will keep increasing forever, because negative reputation is an infinite spiral. So you can't sell shit, but you can't buy anything either. The only way out of it is to bribe the church. Unfortunately, donations are now a lot more charitable. I'm not talking a loose change kind of charity. I'm talking Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation kind of charity. The cheapest donation is 150 G's for a single point of reputation, and we need 200. I don't have that kind of cash, so I reload my game and pretend it never happened. Except it did, and I saved over it, so I can't go back. Later in the game, I went to the Superior Temple of Ba and accidentally did a mini quest for them. Do not talk to that fucking head. Listen, I had something like 400 positive reputation. Let me show you how much I have now. Yeah, it's at a healthy negative 1400. I did some quick math, and I'm here to tell you I can't afford shit. Luckily, when you jump across time and space, reputation doesn't follow. There's many locations where you can dimension door across worlds, but I found out I can just drink all the water in this fountain and take the secret express route. So I went to Might and Magic 8, got myself a member of the chosen people, and came right back. Now, nobody questions me. War crimes? Don't know any. I've grandmastered the merchant arts. My hustle is supreme, and you will pay me a fair price for these shoes. Besides these two little hiccups, everything else in the mod works perfectly. Graphics have been upscaled to fit modern resolutions, which is great since you'll be spending most of your time staring at pixels. The only stuff which isn't baked in textures is the pre-rendered scenes in the shops, houses, and taverns across the game. These still look really good for something made a century ago. Personally, I like to go drinking in Shadowspire. They know how to treat their elvish compatriots because they've got one in the fucking chandelier. There's now extra options to increase render distance and to turn on the weather, which, under every circumstance I've ever pressed it, makes it impossible to see shit. The music is delightful, as always. I never talk seriously about this, but Might and Magic has an insane soundtrack. This shit is designed to unsettle you, and I love it. Also, the sound is crisp, and it's really crispy each time you take a boat. Might and Magic is a game with a simple thesis. Violence solves everything. In this game, we shoot first and justify it later. For example, Misty Islands. I need you to investigate an organization for evidence of corruption. How do we do that? We break in, we murder everyone. We find a single scroll that says we're corrupt, and we get justification for our preemptive massacre. That doesn't mean the game is simplistic. Compare the size and complexity of the average Might and Magic 6 dungeon to the average cave in Skyrim. No comparison. Many quests and dungeons in this game will drive you insane. What's that? You didn't realize that scroll of telekinesis on the floor wasn't random loot and actually was meant to activate an unreachable button you accidentally missed, and now you sold the scroll? Sounds like a personal problem. Did you just dive into a series of dwarven tombs without recording the steps you took, which may be necessary in case you ever want to leave? And my personal favorite, would you like to promote your monk into a ninja? Then I hope you like cryptography, because oh boy, I got a cipher puzzle for you. Luckily, people have suffered through this shit 2 decades before you, so the suffering is optional. This game has something for everyone. For 12-year-old me, this game was all about going to the wine cellar in Tatalia, killing the necromancers there, and reanimating them so I could look at their ass. Please understand, this was before we had internet. I didn't know any better, so I had to make do. It's like Plato's allegory of a cave, except in this cave, everyone's a degenerate. If necromancers weren't available, my next best option was genies, medusas, and, if I'm very desperate, water elementals. Listen, you don't know how tough you got it until you're looking at a fish and you're thinking to yourself, damn, that's a pretty good looking fish. Like I said, this game has something for everyone. So here's a list of features to entice the general public. Explore immersive, magical landscapes, which are composed of about 10 polygons. What did you expect? It runs on a 300 megahertz processor. Your refrigerator could probably run this game twice. Adventure through dark, grainy corridors, where the best way to navigate is by muscle memory, which you don't have. Acquire objectively better gear. Throw it away, because a real man dresses for fashion over function. Commit violence against everyone equally without discrimination. Originally, this game produced a lot of controversy after a Might and Magic player smacked dead a Hindu, believing he was a follower of Ba. Hard to believe, but true. And if you let me edit the wiki article, I can prove it too. Real talk, this game is actually quite endearing. The developers pretty much went around and asked people, yo, you want to be in a video game? Sweet. I'll make you a gypsy. That's why most of the portraits are actually real people. Dig through piles of trash. Catch STIs in the process. Drink from strange water sources. Get mutilated by a fucking minotaur. Go through the whole game in real time because you're not an arthritic old man. And switch to turn-based mode whenever it's more convenient. Abuse turn-based mode to fly up and down between animations and dodge every attack. Why touch the ground when you can just fly above the world and cast Meteor Shower all day? 8. Honestly, why would you even go into a dungeon when you can just buy all the items in town and enchant them for 10 times the original price? Learn the value of different skills, such as
Oops.
Disarm Trap. Assert your dominance by yelling at the peasantry and forcing them to run through your magical minefield. Any death or injury is purely accidental. Besides, even if they do die, we can just reanimate them. No harm, no foul. Run around town and recruit the only 2 useful NPCs, an accountant and a banker, which take 5 and 10% of your earnings, but increase them by 10 and 20. In this game, there's no income tax, but there is tax on inheritance, and you pay that each time you die. How much exactly? 100%. Avoid that by storing your capital inside the Dark Elvish Central Bank.
Your gold is safe with us.
Visit the arena. Participate in the arena, especially at low levels, where you'll be spending your time killing cats and strangling chickens. Visit the circus. They're always on tour. In one of the 3 most popular holiday destinations of the world, Werewolf Town, Undead Town, and of course, tropical islands filled with cannibals. Disclaimer: if you don't want to see hardcore pixelated gore of cannibalized women, don't go to Bootleg Bay. Conversely, if you're into that stuff, go to Bootleg Bay, cast Armageddon, nuke the entire map, and kill everyone in town. Lose not a single point of reputation. Sell a single human bone to a private collector. Lose 5. Actually enjoy the world and get immersed into it, despite the fact that none of this shit makes sense. In conclusion, I give this mod and all the games merged inside it a childhood out of 10. I'm extremely biased, and I know it. Remember, you only need Might and Magic 8 for the Hey people, Seth here. Today, I'll be breaking away from tradition. I'll be covering some old-ass game that's probably very obscure, long, frustrating, dehumanizing, but also very fun. Ask yourself, have you ever wanted to experience the role-playing equivalent of poisoning yourself repeatedly?
I am afflicted.
For many weeks.
I got dibs on his stuff.
Until you gradually build up a tolerance for self-inflicted pain and suffering. You see, much like eating a bag of raw potatoes, do it in one go and you might die, but do it gradually and you might live. Keep at it and you might just start enjoying it. I present to you Wizardry 8, released in 2001 by the Canadian government. Wizardry 8 is one of the finest torture devices to be released on the personal computer. Wizardry 8 takes place in the Dragon Ball Z extended universe. You and your party are space-traveling aliens hired by the Wookiees to retrieve all 3 remaining Dragon Balls, the Astral Domine, the Chaos Malari, and the Destiny Dominus, and use them to ascend as literal gods and reshape the universe. Ascension takes place on a planet called Dominus. Unfortunately, the process of ascension has been complicated by the involvement of a dark savant, who, to put it simply, is Space Hitler, setting up an interplanetary anti-Semitic blockade around Dominus. Unfortunately, your ship bears the Mark of David and is quickly shot out of the sky, forcing you to make a crash landing. All things considered, that's not too bad, except Space Hitler has also rigged the planet with a nuclear payload that is large enough to glass the entire surface, in case anyone who isn't Space Hitler tries to ascend. I hope you're following all this, because this is just the intro. And now I'm gonna quickly summarize the plot to help you understand how amazing this game is. Space Hitler is not very popular. As a result, he loses the only Dragon Ball he has to the Italian Mafia, because he neglected to pay their godfather, Don Barlone. By the way, the Italian Mafia in this game is composed of rats and speak in an Italian-American accent.
Me? I'm always in top form, not just Ratkin. Razooka, pal! Yeah, the Order of Tar. You might consider us a family of sorts.
Don Barlone switches out the Astral Domine with a shiny salt lick. The melanated master finds out and has an autistic tantrum in front of you. You'll come to find this is a common theme. You take the imitation and buy the real thing. It costs most of your life savings, so instead of paying, you might try and whack him instead. Luckily, the best tricks are so nice that they work twice. First, you gotta get chummy with the Umpani or the Trang. This is the choice between authoritarian rhinos or literal bugmen that reproduce faster than India. I usually roll Umpani because we share a common bond in our attraction to anthropomorphic rhino girls. Siding with one of those lets you visit the local Wookiee embassy to have a look at their Chaos Malari. And by having a look at their Chaos Malari,
He seems like an honest, trusting guy, and those are my favorite kinds of people.
I mean snatching it in front of them, apologizing sincerely, and then replacing it with a knockoff glass bulb. Then you gotta find the Destiny Dominus, which is really the search for enlightenment. As the source of all knowledge in the universe, you find it naturally by consuming a lot of psilocybin, DMT, and ayahuasca. So you can project yourself to a higher plane of consciousness and talk with Joe Rogan. With all 3 Dragon Balls in your dragon sack, there's still the small matter of nuclear oblivion. So you gotta go up north and offer your sweet body to a goat demoness. This game was very progressive for its time because Alcedexis is fiercely heterosexual and rejects the very concept of scissoring. She also rejects the concept of monetizable content because her milk jugs are anything but modest. Anyway, to disarm the bomb, you have to get inside it. How? By breaking and entering into people's bedrooms because, logically speaking, one of them is bound to have a direct access interdimensional portal into the bomb, which can be disabled by pressing random keys and getting lucky. With the bomb no longer armed, you smack the Savant, leaving him disarmed. The Savant dies, but in his death reveals to you the ultimate truth that he's been using a voice changer on Discord this whole time, and he's not actually that dark. The end. Any questions? No? Then in that case, welcome to Wizardry 8. I love this game. Now let's talk about playing it. To play, you need to make a party. From characters, you make yourself. If I said there's a lot of options, that would be an understatement. You can be anything you want to be. Humans, non-humans, subhumans, furries, scalies, more furries, and even short kings. There's so many short kings in this game, you can pick by your preferred size. Anything from 5'11" kings to a 5'10" pocket prince, who are so light at this point they get carried away by the wind. Race. Is there a link between race and I? There's 11 races, and that's only including ones you can pick. There's about 16 in total. Do anything you want to do, and I mean it. I don't care how many classes your game has, because Wizardry 8 has 15, including, but not limited to, fighters, which fight, Valkyries, which fight using female privilege to avoid death, ninjas, which fight with the empty space representing their lack of contribution to the team until 2 weeks into the average game. However, if you rolled a fairy ninja, congratulations, because your pocket prince can now solo the entire game. Alchemist makes potions and breaks the economy by making infinite potions you can sell for infinite money, letting you buy everything in the entire game. 10 out of 10, working as intended. Gadgeteer, who uses an unconventional form of weaponry. A gun. But that's the boring part. The interesting part is overloading a microwave in a monastery, ripping out the microwave chip, and using it to give your enemies brain tumors. Gadgets are essentially random pieces of trash duct taped together to inexplicably cause widespread devastation. And if you think that sounds ridiculous, then let me tell you about the bard. In most games, a bard plays music, keeps up morale, and probably cooks and cleans for the party as well. In Wizardry 8, the droning melody of a bard's bagpipe brings pandemonium, the plucking of his harp causes cerebral hemorrhaging, and the blowing of his horn results in nuclear fallout. Building the optimal 6-man party is difficult. Explaining is difficult, and we don't have time. Here's my build. Follow it, copy it, enjoy it. It's very powerful, very well-rounded, and gives you a complete first experience of a game. By the way, this game's got a lot of voice dialogue.
I've got a surprise for you. Stand still so you can get it between the eyes.
And most of it comes from your own party.
I almost feel normal.
There's 18 different personalities for each gender.
There will be many implements of destruction at my disposal, yeah?
Which is 36 fully voiced personalities in total.
Yeah, slice him, dice him. No sense being nice to him. That's my motto.
And that's absolutely nuts. Now, on to the fun stuff. I present to you all my current party. That's right, I manually imported all this to work inside the game. By the way, they're fully animated. The portraits, not even that bad. But manually animating the eyes and mouth, yeah, that took a while. As our first fighter, we got Internet Historian. Physically, he's a giant. Mentally, he's...
Ah, a trap. I wonder what would happen if I just pulled this thing here.
He's very stable. Mr. Mandalore as our second fighter, whose voice I absolutely adore.
How exciting. I think I'm improving. Oh no. More people. They just keep coming. And coming. I'm getting stressed.
It's just so expressive. As our morally bankrupt, backstabbing, conniving, and scheming Jew, we got my man Uber Danger as a rogue who sounds exactly as he does in real life.
I'd rather be recognized with cash, but a rise in status will do. Oh yeah, this is amazing. Nothing special. Yeah, probably worthless. I'll just hang on to it for us. You go on and fight. I'll guard the rear.
For spellcasters, I put Frederick Knudsen, hey people, as our resident psionic. There's nothing wrong with him. He's actually the most well-adjusted of the entire group.
Gotcha! I am glad to be alive again, though the stillness of death was not totally objectionable.
Also, I put him as female. Sorry, Fred baby, but the best jewelry in this game is for girls, and we need to min-max. Myself as the party's dark, brooding alchemist.
Ordinary men fear the power of darkness. I revel in it.
Who, over the course of the story, has been one-shot many times.
The dead guy! What was his name?
Thanks so very much. Why did you tear me from death's sweet embrace?
And finally, Ken Ashcorp as our local priest.
Be careful! I can't believe we're wasting time talking to a chipmunk!
Who's also completely unhinged. I did originally consider adding Pyro Cynical to the team, but unfortunately, YouTube does not let me feature minors in this video. There's a lot to do in wizardry. Explore amazing places, visit the swamp, catch malaria, climb a tree, get body blocked for hours by hamsters, go to the only functional city in the game, with a grand total population of about 12 people, get harassed by Space Hitler and the androids of the Fourth Reich, head to the bar, get blackmailed, go to the bank, because of course it's still open, go to the airport, because why not? Because this is the one game where you can talk to a starship and tell it to go fuck itself. The dialogue system in this game is nothing short of amazing. You have to manually write down, memorize, and figure out the keywords for conversational topics you're interested in. The game will then try to identify your intent and produce you a fully voiced answer.
Amusing yourself, are you?
There's not many NPCs in this game, but I remember every single one of them. Whether it's the Umpani and their militaristic tendencies.
Oh, come on now, stupid thing. Get in there. Perfect. Oh no, oh no.
The slick-talking Don Barlone of the Razuka.
We keep our end of the deal, you know. But he slips town before he pays our fee. So, we're here to collect. But, he ain't gonna pay. That ain't a problem. We get our cash, and you get your prize. And the Dark Savant gets shafted.
Or even your own biological daughter, conceived as a result of sleeping around with demons, because their voice acting is absolutely fantastic. Some can even be convinced to join your party. Unfortunately, most of them are highly superstitious of their own planet, and won't go where you want them to.
You know what, boys? This place reminds me of a song I wrote called I Ain't Going There No Way, No How.
The workaround to this is running them to exhaustion with a heavy backpack, knocking them unconscious, and forcibly dragging them past the load screen. Once they wake up, they'll complain and bitch about this breach of consent, which is why people generally avoid them. Except RFS-81, who is the best boy, because, unlike everyone else, he's not programmed to be a bitch. Quests are also equally brilliant, until you get stuck, until you get frustrated and desperate enough to read the damn walkthrough instead. There's no shame in that, because I do it. And I finished the game twice. Some of my favorite quests include protecting a verified Twitter user from hateful comments online by crushing someone into meat paste after luring them in using the sweet aroma of a female girl, getting motion sickness from the mine tunnels, and of course retrieving the black box flight recorder of a crashed ship so you can triangulate the position of Space Hitler's ship and use a heavy surface-to-air battery to shoot him out of the sky.
3, 2, 1, firing.
Yeah, this game goes 0 to 100 real fast. Anyway, let's get back to something sensible, like using medieval weaponry to kill fantasy creatures. The biggest part of this game, from beginning to end, from the moment you wake up on that beach to the moment you pass out each day from exhaustion, is combat. This game has a lot of fighting. A lot of fighting. The hardest thing in this game is to simply walk unmolested through a short forest trail, which is physically impossible, because every step of the way you'll be harassed, molested, and physically assaulted by the entire regional populace. Should you survive your first experience of the great outdoors, you'll reach Arnica, the first city in the game. And don't worry, that's where I also let my guard down, sleeping with a door open, peeking out from a dusty window, only to catch a faint glimpse of moving pixels in your peripheral vision. I'm very sorry, but you're now in combat with the entire city, because even civilization is an unstoppable barrage of random encounters. To understand my frustration, here's an example. Previously, I have walked 5 meters on a tropical island, got jumped by crustaceans, walked 5 meters back because I realized I was going the wrong way, got jumped by more crustaceans, only to walk forward again and get jumped by the same group of crustaceans which have now respawned. This wouldn't be so bad if combat wasn't turn-based, but it is, and it's slow. This won't hit you immediately, but believe me, it will. And once it does, the following information will make sense. Hello, future viewer. Like you, I have also had a mental breakdown after watching combat animations for many hours. So, I've installed the Wizardry 8 speed mod to quicken animations. I'm running Wiz 8 fast at 625 times speed, and I'm simultaneously speed hacking the game with Cheat Engine at 3 times speed. And it's still slow, but don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean combat is easy. It's absolutely the opposite. It's sadistically hard. It doesn't care, and it's going to keep beating you until you break.
She was a saint! A saint!
Sure, you can put down the difficulty. You're still gonna get shredded by the 10+ juggernauts that just came out of camouflage. The only way to avoid dismemberment is to play intelligently. This game is a constant battle of overwhelming odds versus your own capacity to game the system. To charge the juggernauts is suicide. They swing potentially 3 times a turn, and they're not stupid. They're gonna surround you, flank you, and hack your spellcasters to pieces. Positioning is important. Instead of charging, we herd them into a choke point. Their numbers become worthless, and we reduce the fight into a glorified meat grinder. And that's not hyperbole. Enemies get visibly wounded the more you hurt them. It provokes a very Pavlovian response, as I get satisfaction from seeing whatever has inconvenienced me get reduced to a bloody pulp. Other times I'm left thinking, Jesus fucking Christ, please stop. Just put him out of his misery, as I'm beating a bandit so hard that we've ripped the very skin off his face, and his skull is visibly poking through the flesh. Tactics are important. Your fighters do most of the damage. Your mages control the battlefield. Why deal with a crowd when you can make the crowd insane and kill each other in a psychotic rage? And if that doesn't work, paralyze them, curse them, give them topical dermatitis, make them throw up, and induce nausea. You know the best way to stop an animal attack? Diarrhea. Because it's very hard to focus on anything when your ass is exploding. However, any status that affects enemies can affect you as well. And you'll find it's very hard for your party to focus when they're in the process of getting vored and digested by wild animals.
Something's different, but I can't put my finger on it.
Luckily, combat is extremely rewarding. You only have to win a couple of fights appropriate to your level to level up. With that comes increased stats, skills, and spells to expand your options. Also, the game gets harder. Early game might be spent on the verge of death, but given time, you'll find that this is a constant state of tension, except you're no longer afraid of it. Instead, you'll learn to enjoy it, and even revel in the act as you realize you're quite good at it. I do, however, have some critique. 1. Traps. Traps are randomized, and one of them stole 90% of my current assets. Philosopher's Bane turns your gold into lead, and I forgot to quick save. On the other hand, my critique is also praise, because traps are a perfect example of how goddamn good the sound design is in this game. First, you gotta tumble around to try and guess the mechanism. Next, you need to try and disarm them one at a time. Listen to this. The sound is so goddamn crispy that you can physically feel the tension as your rogue fiddles with the machinery, which can snap at any given moment. Good God, I love it. Just remember to save. 2. Lockpicking. Lockpicking is not based. It is cringe. It is an endless hell of clicking tumblers to make them rise, only to watch the rest fall as you persist in your futile struggle. Which is why I strongly recommend you use earth magic to magically hold the tumblers, because otherwise you're gonna have a bad time. 3. Pickpocketing. Don't even bother, because it's fucking broken. No one's really sure how it works, but you can't save scum, and the responses are hard-coded. It's actually almost creepy. I once pickpocketed an NPC 5 times with the same negative outcome, only to reload the quick save and discover that the NPC was missing, or rather that they were deleted from my save file, as if to send me a message. I know this sounds like I'm losing it, and you don't have to believe me, because I managed to record the whole thing. 4. Other weird shit that happens. I used to think you couldn't alt-tab out of this game, because alt-tabbing breaks the keyboard. Turns out it doesn't. You just have to hit the alt key once again. How could you know this? You can't. How did I learn this? I smashed my keyboard and it worked. Then I reduced the surface area of my fist, smashed keys at random until, through order of elimination, found the secret combination. This game has several features on the level of esoteric knowledge. That is to say, nobody knows shit. Wizardry 8 is absolutely fantastic. Yes, there's annoying bullshit to deal with, but hey, it's almost 2 decades old and released in less than ideal circumstances. That's why there's still a fucking hardware advert that pops up whenever you try and close the game, because the publisher was broke and the developer was about to be. So they had to shill out, buy advertising, higher FPS in a turn-based RPG where FPS doesn't matter. On the other hand, holy shit, that advert aged well. They still exist to this very day. Pre-built computers? Now that's a future-proof business model, not some turn-based PTSD simulator that blew its entire poly count on jiggle physics. This game will try to break you. It'll spit in your mouth, call you names, and crush your self-esteem. But if you persist, that's when real satisfaction kicks in. When you're no longer at the mercy of its bullshit. It's the feeling of control. And let me tell you, it is an all-encompassing, intoxicating sensation. I give Wizardry 8 an extremely high score. I also give it 80% off on GOG, because I have that power. All this for about $2. If it sounds like something you'd enjoy, give it a try. An average playthrough will run you anywhere between 100 to 150 hours of game time. And given the vast range of builds and character classes, it is very much replayable, preferably with breaks of several years in between. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild, generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful. Have a good one, stay safe, and please enjoy the credits.
He seems like a kind, generous soul. I hate him.
What do you want? If it walks, I can change that.
I'm burning to kill.
You gotta admire the guy. He didn't let a little thing like being dead slow him down one bit.
So now I'm a Templar Rapax. All my childhood dreams have come true.
Oh, great! Swimming! I hate swimming! I didn't come a million miles to get all soggy!
I'm filled with glee. We won. I think we can make an all-right universe if we put our minds to it. Chaos. Woohoo!
Death has taken him. Lucky fellow.
You know, they said I was crazy when I told them I'd take over the universe one day.
Ow! Master, it is my duty to report a life form disappearance.
You know, that was the single most traumatic moment of my entire life. I'm not a man to hold resentments. I like to forgive. Maybe you could expedite that process a little by, a cash settlement?
His death comes as a surprise. He showed so many traits of a strong alpha male.
We got it! Now let's get out of here before bells and buzzers go off. I'd hate for this to turn into some kind of bloodbath, yeah. Hate it.
You know, when someone gets a big kill like that, his friends usually pitch in with some kind of reward. Really, they do.
Who shall be your sacrifice?
Taken care of.
Ah, beautiful choice.
I have been transfixed by the demoness and used for her sport. It's like a beautiful dream. Wait!
Didn't see anything.
I have a confession. You recall that Rapak's demoness that suffice it to say that she has bewitched me somehow. If I leave this place, I suffer the torments of the damned. The only way to stop it... Oh! I am afflicted. The demoness possesses me no longer. Why is it that all my affairs end in bloodshed?
You can't con a con, Savant. And you can't steal from a thief. But you can kill a killer. Especially if you're me. Good night.
Hey people, Seth here. Today, I'll be playing a video game. Usually, I don't. Have you ever wanted to survive a Russian winter using nothing but jam and herbal tea, traverse the desert during the day in the holy month of Ramadan, and die of heat stroke because you forgot to wear your turban, or lose private property to the state because the state finds you guilty of being alive? Welcome to Outward, which came out in March 2019. Could have fooled me because it feels like it came out of early access in March 2020. I'm kidding, Guillaume. It's actually pretty great, unlike French Canada, which refuses to join the 21st century. In Outward, you run hundreds of miles while not moving at all in real life, but also you play a shipwreck survivor in a relatable setting. You're broke, you're hideously deformed, and you're about to be homeless. As such, there's no better time to explore the mysteries of a great wide world, which is filled to the brim with experiences and adventures you won't forget. Or, in my case, you're gonna step out the front door of your village, get assaulted by goons, and get pressed into a life of heavy labor in the coal mines, where the dominant government is a strict meritocracy, standing by the noble principles of you don't work, you don't eat. Also, we got free drinking water. Drinking the tapeworms inside it is completely optional. There's a lot to do in this game. Go fishing and catch yourself a nice pair of shoes. Get chased by wild poultry. Look back behind you and see the same poultry get chased by wild hyenas instead. Mine natural rock formations. Get attacked by unnatural rock formations. Acquire salt from the ground and from the tears of your enemies as you lure an entire bandit fortress into several miles of tripwire. Cure every disease by boiling beetles in hot liquid and calling it tea. Enjoy the weather in moderation. Enjoy the extensive lore and backplot. Just kidding, there's almost none. Enjoy dying in the hallowed marsh because you accidentally clipped out of a collision box. Hope you didn't start the game on hardcore because there's a 1 in 5 Russian roulette gamble that your save game just got permanently deleted. Pick up a bow and quickscope your enemies. Remember to crouch so they don't see you. Don't worry, every enemy has to spend 1 spinal injury to process what's going on. Then they use the second arrow embedded in their chest to calculate the directional velocity vector of where those arrows might be coming from. Realize that enemies are pretending to be dead. Why else does this chicken keep screaming each time I beat its corpse? Explore new and amazing cave systems. Fun fact, they're pitch black and you can't see shit. Better pack a torch, strap a lantern to your pack, or better yet, light a campfire every 10 meters to trace your way back, because there's no map in the dungeon. There is a map of the area, but there's no magical GPS to tell you where you are. You gotta figure out your location and orientation using landmarks and natural geography. Let's say I need to head back to town, but where is town? Oh right, it's northwest of a gigantic screaming pylon. Go camping. Get stabbed inside your own tent. Take the eco-friendly option and grow your own biodegradable tent. It's more expensive, but hey, it's better for carbon emissions. Go to bed. Get stabbed anyway. Go camping in town, because somehow there's no law against vagrancy in the market square, or against setting up bonfires, cooking appliances, and even a miniaturized meth lab in the middle of a street. The legal system in this game could use some work. There's also a lot you can't do in this game. For a start, you can't level up. There's no leveling in this game. The same 4 bandits on a picnic can fuck you up at any stage of a game. So, how does one get stronger? 1. You go into a dungeon and loot it for every possible piece of gear. In this game, equipment is not made equal. The difference between a wooden fishing stick and a unique legendary spear is quite staggering. On top of that, you can craft your own weapons and armor, or get them custom built built by the local blacksmith. In time, you can go from looking homeless and malnourished to looking like this. These are achievable natty gains, dictated only by how much time and money you're willing to spend. There's a lot of different weapons with their own attack patterns, each having their own strengths and weaknesses depending on the enemy. 2. Skills. There's abilities, both actively and passively aggressive, taught to you by different trainers across the world. You can learn everything in the bottom half of each skill tree, but if you want to master the profession, you'll need to spend a breakthrough point, and you only get 3 of these per character. Combining certain skills and gear lets you roleplay a specific class, anything from a warrior to a holy warrior to an archer, a spellcaster, or even a pizza delivery boy. The possibilities are rather limited actually, but hey, it's there. Don't mind me, I'm just regretting my decision to run nothing but pistols, forgetting that these are 17th century single-use flintlock pistols that take an entire lunch break to properly load, all for the luxury of being able to do this. I didn't bring an antidote. And 3, the most important of all, food. Winning fights is all about what you put inside your mouth. Real champions eat like champions. Cierzo ceviche, luxe léchette, ragout de marais, and diadème de gibier is what those words sound like coming out of a foreigner's mouth. These are all French dishes that effectively translate to the same thing. 10 to 15 minutes of turbo stamina, health, and mana recovery. They also look delicious, so I tried to recreate them in real life, at which point they became biohazardous and I had to stop. Better stay hydrated as well, because that's another 3 minutes of stamina recovery, and that shit stacks. There's no quick and easy way of getting back your vitality, and at least in the early game, potions are outside the coverage of your healthcare plan. So, if you hope to survive, you better learn how to cook some goddamn delicious meals, or convince your partner to do it instead. Also, losing your health and stamina will slowly burn it for the rest of the day, which means the longer you exert yourself, the weaker you become. There's only 2 ways about this: sleeping and drinking fuck tons of tea, which is a temporary solution at best, since Monster Energy will only be craftable in the upcoming expansion. For now, there's no such thing as caffeine. The safest option is sleeping in town, but more often than not, you'll have to camp in the wilderness or at the bottom of some disgusting pit with no natural sunlight, which most of us refer to as miscellaneous dungeon number 7. That may sound spooky until you realize high quality tents give you even more obscene stat bonuses, and getting ambushed is just free money. Outward is an open world RPG, which really focuses on the open world and vaguely remembers that role-playing has something to do with fashion. Outward takes place during the Old Testament, and as such, besides paying your blood debt to a dysfunctional tribal society, it doesn't give you much reason or motivation for doing anything. Just collect berries, make jam, reproduce, and die. If you keep your house, there's no more payments. If you don't, then just progress the story. Spoiler, you get back at your tribe anyway. Oh, what's that? A group of local warlords are planning to invade, and they're gonna teach everyone living here the meaning of the word gaping hole. I am incredibly invested in securing the future and livelihood of this backwater fishing village. However, I was too slow. Shame on me for packing 50 kilos of Weetabix. My home is destroyed. What a sad loss of life. Also, I don't owe money anymore because everyone is dead. This game has a hard time making me give a shit about the plot or any of the characters. The entire story is told to you through several lines of dialogue. I've read erotic fanfiction with a higher word count than this entire game. The dialogue is voice acted, but voice acting is expensive. Hey, ever since Quebec left Canada, you can't call it a street anymore. It's a fucking war zone out there. And getting a voice actor alive into city limits with most of their limbs still attached, that's not happening. You're not going to survive a first dead zone without a paramilitary escort, and that's a cost the studio can't afford. Which is why they voice act the first 5 words in a sentence and stand around silently while you read the rest. Not like it makes a difference, because there's only 5 voice actors in this entire game who are incredibly talented to be able to vocalize so many different, unique characters. Who could forget the blacksmith?
What can I do for you?
Who is genetically identical to every other blacksmith ever conceived.
Want to buy something? What can I do for you? Want to buy something?
Whether naturally or by cesarean, the dude who sells fish.
Greetings, friend. Farewell, my friend.
And of course, Cyrene, who prefers the crispy, smooth texture of Lucky Strikes. What's her secret? It's toasted. To truly appreciate the voice acting, I recommend going to the settings and putting the volume to 0. There is replayability to the story, in the sense you can choose between 3 different factions. The same people who try to repossess your private property, the Holy Mission on a jihad against corruption, and the Sand People on a jihad against anyone who wants their oil. Can I be very blunt for a second? Each faction has a quest line. This is 4 missions long, and one of these is the same final quest with a different coat of paint. That's a little short, but I guess that's fine for an indie title that's only wait, how much? Are you aware that we're about to have a global recession? Creating a character is an intense experience, where the men have a grand selection of 4 different faces. The women have it a little better. There's options for customizing your waist, thighs, and of course, mammaries. They even have 2 sliders for body positivity. I do, however, like the Asian face, and I also like this haircut. Everyone else looks like an alcoholic stepdad, a wife beater, or ninja from Fortnite. Those are your options. Enjoy. Walking. Walking is a fantastic form of cardiovascular exercise, just like long-distance jogging. Homo sapiens are uniquely adapted for such movement, which is why we traditionally hunted wild animals by running them down slowly for many miles. How is this relevant, Seth? Because in Outward, it's what you're going to be doing 90% of the time. The other 10% is managing your inventory. Here is footage of me taking a short, brisk sprint from one town to the next. Unfortunately, I had to cut this segment, as it would be longer than this entire video. I can finally understand why there's so many skeletons lying around. These were the people who came before me and died in the process of trying to review this game. Many will tell you this is part of a meaningful journey of holding down the shift key. Many will also tell you this is why there's no fast travel, because this is a game for hardcore gamers. However, nothing in this game can actually outrun you. You can safely ignore everything and auto-run to your destination. And there is actually an unconventional form of fast travel in this game. It's called throwing yourself down a mountainside and breaking your legs. You see, when your legs explode, they will instantaneously warp you to the nearest town. If you can't find a cliff, there's a second form of fast travel in this game. It's called swallowing a cyanide pill. This is a form of speedrunning discovered during the Nuremberg trials and has virtually the same effect. In this game, you don't really die. You have defeat scenarios, which is one of several random events that occur instead of death. These are unique to each area and depend on the circumstances of your untimely demise, but they didn't account for people intentionally dying as a means of teleportation. If you don't, can't, or won't use such exploits, then I recommend speed hacking instead. You might frown upon me, but when you become gray and old and your grandson asks you, "Grandpa, what did you do with all your time?" and you answer, "I spent the entirety of my youth holding down the shift key," he'll look back at you, teary-eyed, and say, "Granddad, this is why we don't visit you. Tomorrow, I'm pulling the plug. Get fucked." I did have some memorable experiences in Outward. It's very beautiful, and the soundtrack is amazing. But if you want a real cinematic experience, turn on motion blur and let your eyes glaze over. There's still a lack of dialogue in this game, so I have to roleplay to fully immerse myself. Sometimes I stand around the giant village pretending that I'm a small boy, helping out the kebab stand for my Albanian father. Exploring is a measured, careful experience, since you'll often get overwhelmed by enemies unless you come prepared. Luckily, I can always tell what's out there, because they always spawn into existence T-posing in the middle of the sky. I find this very entertaining. In this game, there's no such thing as over-prepared, only the fine line between survival and death. I took that advice to heart, and I've never actually seen a boss fight in this entire game. All I could ever see was a fade to black, followed by the sounds of multiple explosions. You see, most of the skill trees are generally interesting, but then there's Rogue Engineer, which lets you do this. I have spent the entirety of my game time breaking the game with pressure plate traps. As such, I have no idea how combat works. I only know how many pressure plates are necessary for each encounter. The answer to which is, how much space do you have? I did hear people call combat clunky, and I sympathize, because the range on those those fucking daggers is about the length of a toddler's arm, so I really recommend using two-handed weapons instead. They swing harder, but most importantly, they swing wider, so you're more likely to clip something in the face, even if they're dodging. Oh yeah, this game's got a great combat system, because it's broken. There's nothing to explain, except don't get hit or you'll get stun-locked and die. It's pure cheese, and the same works on your enemies. You smack them hard enough until they fall, and then you beat the shit out of them as they try to get up. For this reason, engaging multiple enemies is risky. It's better to try and pick them off at a distance, kite them into tripwire, or just hit them between loading screens. I hope you bought an SSD because this game takes a while to load. Remember, in Outward, there's no such thing as fair play. If it works, it's a valid means of achieving your goals. There's nothing dishonorable about impaling your enemies and running away while they bleed to death. They're also easily distractible, as I found one of the most effective weapons to be your legs, which you can use to lure bandits into death traps. As their friends get ripped apart by the local wildlife, you can jump in and loot the bodies for monetary gain. Some enemies, however, don't respond well to physical assault. In this case, you smear caviar on your Kleenex tissues and kill them anyway. When might fails, magic prevails, as do pizza-based attacks. I mention magic, yet you don't start with it. Learning how to cast spells is a journey in itself. You first have to reach a magical ley line. However, the only one around is inside Conflux Mountain. You'll know it when you see it, because it kinda stands out. Inside the mountain, you can take several different paths to get there. I took the most treacherous because I was told by the heavily armed paladin at the door that it's also the shortest. He proved this point by getting his face crushed immediately after. Naturally, I left him dead on the floor and ran like a bitch. There was nothing magical about this experience. It wasn't until the next day that I dared to go back, together with better gear and a billion tripwires. Marching through the darkness, eventually I reached the ley line, where the game offered me the ability to use mana in exchange for a permanent sacrifice of my health and stamina. At such generous exchange rates, how could I say no? After all that preparation, hardship, and the trauma of seeing a man get ripped apart in front of me, I got the ability to cast this piece of shit. Have I been scammed? No, not at all. Well, maybe, but the sacrifice is permanent, so let's just accept that I made a mistake. In this game, spells are useless on their own, but combined together become incredibly potent. If I first inscribe a sigil of fire on the floor, which requires the use of expensive reagents, any spark I cast turns into a fucking fireball. Holy shit, you can learn a bunch of unrelated spells only to find out their synergy much later. For example, I never understood the point of Reveal Soul until I realized it also works with spark. Goodbye mana potions. Hello, consuming a dead man's soul for free mana. And when I don't want to consume, I cast Conjuration and enslave him to be my undead follower. If I get into rune magic, the runes do nothing, but when two are strung together in sequence, produce different effects. If I train on to learn arcane syntax, I get to use the more powerful 4-word sequences instead. Or if I join the Cabal of Wind, I can summon a Sigil of Wind, provided I've activated the regional totem, because the 5 winds won't listen if they don't know you. Inside, sparks become thunder, Conjuration cooks the area, and any bullet I load into my pistol turns into this. Now, there is a problem with this system. There's a lot of abilities, a lot of skills, many of them which can and should be combined because that's what we're told to do. It's what the game encourages, but you can't. The reason for this is you only get 8 quick slots. That's a grand total of 8 different hotkeys in a game where you frequently need about twice that number. There are mods to fix this, but they break on every patch. I know this game is designed for consoles, but hear me out. They're not to blame. You know who is? The French Canadians. Why the fuck is there no button to toggle the hotkeys? Just add an extra key. Come on, there's space for it. Final Fantasy XIV managed to do it, and they did it on a brick, which has 2 buttons welded together in concrete. Please, Guillaume, hear my plea. Please. I even pronounced your name correctly this time. For everything bad I said, there's also good. It's called 2-player co-op, and it completely rescues the game. Outward is one of the only modern games with local split-screen co-op. This is stuff straight straight out of a 2000s, and it works great. The difficulty scales with 2 people, and honestly, it feels almost perfect. Everything can either knock you out or outright kill you in a single swipe, which makes your victories and progress together all the more meaningful. I tried to play online, but unfortunately, my copy of the game has some connectivity issues. Also, none of my friends play Outward, so we played Company of Heroes 2 instead. I found that satchel charges are very similar in function to pressure plates. The only difference is that I got the instant gratification of hearing my friend scream each time he got baited into the exact same trap. I give Outward's multiplayer a 10 out of 10. I had a lot of fun, we were very immersed, and we learned a great deal about ragdoll physics. In summary, Outward is an Italian cooking simulator designed to be played with your girlfriend. Outward provides an interesting, measured, and slow experience that gets diluted by all the hours of walking. I skipped the walking, saved my sanity, and saw the game for what it is, a beautifully ambitious gem of a game. Yet, that gem is uncut and uncircumcised. It's rough around the edges, but it shines best as a cooperative action RPG. And there's clearly a lot of love put into it. If you're willing to forgive all that, there's a lot to enjoy. And supposedly, the upcoming expansion will add more post-game content. I give this game a 15 out of $45, which is the price I'm willing to pay for it. And I asked GOG to put it on discount according to my score. Follow my link, and until June 15th, you get screwed a little less by our corporate masters. If you're watching later and you missed out, have a look at this. The game is always on discount. It just rotates across stores. Of course, you can always get a bigger discount, but by that I mean going to your friend's house and trying it for yourself. Except your friend's name is Trusted VIP Uploader, and his house is an IP address. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful. Have a good one.
You may have seen this image before. It's the cover for The Mystery of the Druids. It's a 2001 adventure game, and this face, well, that's just the beginning. This was a long time coming. A while back I talked about Limbo of the Lost, and honestly my brain still doesn't let me accept that that was real. However, that's a game that's insane right from the get-go. You know you're in for a ride from the very beginning. Many adventure games are like that, but this one is deceptive. Because sure, you have Screaming Druid cover, which has been a joke for like, what, 20 years now? It is funny, but it's also overshadowed the game itself. On Steam it's mostly negative, but that could be because no one there can actually run the damn thing. And neither can I, because like the review said, I crash constantly and it freezes up. Luckily, GOG released a fixed version a few years back. The wording was a little strange, but they seem to be big fans of the game. Really big fans, I mean, look who was QAing it. And the second they found out I was doing this, they put it on an absurd discount and the page is all weird and... Okay, look, before all this, something seemed odd about it. So like Limbo of the Lost, I'm here to take you on a journey. After all, a cosmic horror hiding under something innocuous is perfect for Halloween. It has Dolby Surround plastered all over it too, so look forward to some great audio. In fact, some of you have been looking forward to this a little too much. So now I'll skip past the credits and begin the descent. Okay, you got all that? We're then taken to the Scotland Yard where we meet our hero and his boss. It's not clear yet what the druids have to do with anything, but I guess that's the mystery.
Now look here, Detective Halligan. I've got used to being surrounded by a bunch of incompetent, half-baked blockheads. But your smart, well-dressed colleague Lowry has just earned himself the golden badge of stupidity. Halligan, we've got a bit of a problem.
To save some exposition time, your coworker Lowry has thrown an innocent man in jail for murder. Said man was then murdered in jail and the real killer is still on the loose. So now Detective Halligan is taking over and the chief seems furious about it. Why does he hate Halligan so much?
There's no point in asking you to clear up anything more than a common bicycle theft. But this does happen to be the murder squad. I am the chief of this department. All I have for choice is that blockhead Lowry and you.
Okay, Chief. What do you want me to do?
And so it begins. The first thing Chief Miller does is chastise you for not knowing Lowry's case file. This is actually a readable document. It's a PDF for the GOG version, but the physical game came with one. It's all pretty irrelevant, it just tells you that Lowry's an asshole and he got the wrong guy. We knew that already. Halligan, however, is struggling.
Well, alright, these things happen. But how do you know that the man Lowry arrested didn't commit the murders?
Very simple. Dead people don't go around committing more murders. No sloppiness now. I want results. Sensible results. The press has already been terrorizing me this morning. The killer must be found. Do I make myself clear?
Of course, Chief.
From here you properly control Halligan and it looks like your standard adventure game fare. You can click on random items to hear more information, but also click on Miller again to hear more about the case because Halligan seems clueless.
Halligan, it's well known that you'd rather read those crazy books of yours during office hours than taking any real interest in the affairs of this department. But it would now appear that you've even stopped reading the newspapers as well. For months now, a killer's been running around in London, taking victims apart and leaving nothing but bones for us to find. You can read about it in any newspaper.
We now have confirmation that a super Zodiac killer was running around and we're now playing a cop who had no idea about it. But he has excuses for that.
I don't pay too much attention to what the papers say.
From here you can move around and explore the station. Halligan's office seems like a good place to start and it looks like a bomb went off. And the decor is... what?
God save the Queen. Even if she's wearing a really ugly green suit.
Okay. We also learn Halligan's a recovering smoker. That doesn't seem crazy for his job until we find out he's been smoking a carton a week. That's 28 cigarettes every day on average. Things only get stranger.
Good to know that there are intelligent life forms out there. In here I only meet weirdos like Detective Lowry.
Well, that's what the chief meant by insane books, since apparently Halligan's been studying crop circles, along with other conspiracies.
John Sinclair, Ghost Hunter. My favorite book. Unfortunately, there's no pizza in there anymore.
Pizza?
Al's Pizza Palace makes the best pizza in the whole of London.
Okay, English viewers, have you ever heard anyone there natively say pizza? I'm going to guess no because this is a German game. The thing is, it's really the only word that gets mangled like this. A voice director out there had to be insisting on pizza. The other word they get weird sometimes is, ironically, druid. Sometimes they're druid. This is the mystery of the druids. Anyhow, Halligan grabs essentials like apple juice, a scarf he stole from a coworker he likes, and with each moment it becomes more terrifyingly clear why Miller did not want Halligan on the case.
The cleaner will empty the ashtray.
The chief had been going on about just how much Lowry screwed up the case, so let's pay him a visit. Now we can... Why is there droning ambient music? Why is he floating like Vivek? I know the obvious answer is it's some kind of bug, but it's not that simple. If I go on the store page for the game, it's a featured screenshot. These are created by, or at least approved by, developers. In other words, this is word of God, this is how it's meant to be played. Images of him in the chair are either fake or some kind of copy protection. The game has barely begun and I am already so full of questions. What is Lowry's purpose here?
Hello, Lowry.
Oh no, not you, Halligan. You're all I need at the moment.
That's a nice suit you're wearing.
Don't humour me, Halligan. You don't know a thing about suits. A blind man would know from 100 yards away that you bought your stuff at Woolworths. What do you want?
He's here to bully Halligan.
Just a quick question, Lowry. Have you seen my wallet?
Your wallet? You've got a nerve. I haven't really had a very pleasant day so far, as you might have noticed. Why would I worry about your bloody wallet?
Larry, could you just give me a sensible answer? I'm looking for my wallet.
So what? Do you think I've got it? Why don't you just go and clear up your oh-so-tidy office? Maybe you'll find some of those things you allegedly just wanted to borrow for a while.
Let's not argue, Lowry. I need some information from you about the last investigations.
You've got the file, Halligan. I suppose you can read. And now scram!
Lowry, I've read your file. There's just nonsense in it.
Do you know what I think, Halligan? I think I don't need to tolerate a detective in a 20-pound suit walking past my door criticizing the quality of my work.
If my suit was more expensive, would that make your file any better?
Very witty, detective. Yes, really very witty. Tell me, haven't you got anything better to do than crack jokes?
Thank you for being so very friendly, Lowry. Enjoy your spare time.
Just clear off, Halligan.
I've got to say, besides the whole pizza thing, the voice acting and direction is really excellent. You've barely talked and you can already feel the history of the rivalry. You can mess around in his office for a bit and learn more about how Halligan views the world.
Books? He's got books? They're probably just for show, meant to impress the ladies.
Speaking of ladies, there is one in the office you can talk to, the one who Halligan has her scarf for some reason. You can't actually return it to her yet, but I think her neck has bigger problems.